Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic turned full-time energy healer and teacher.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch running my family's crystal shop.
And we're here to explore all things woo through the lens of both science and spirituality so that you can find the moments of magic in your everyday life and create an intentional spiritual practice.
So if that's what you're into, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic.
Howdy doody, friends.
Howdy doody.
We have a surprise for you that we wanted to slip in the front of this episode because we are about to hit our 2-year birthday on the pod. Woo!
We're entering the terrible twos. What do you think it's going to be like?
Tantrums, tarot, and tariffs, apparently.
The tariff was the only word I could think of, so I'm glad you at least got one witchy word in there. All right, we're starting on a high note here.
High note. Anyways, we're not here to ramble. We're here to tell you about a very cool giveaway that we are going to be running between now and June 15th. So in our show notes, you are going to see a cute little link to a form. And in that form, you are going to upload your screenshot of your review. This could be a review from Spotify, Apple, wherever you are listening to this. Go ahead and upload that screenshot. Let us know your word of the year, and you're going to be entered to win a giveaway. Madison, tell our people what they're going to win.
You could win a witchy little goodie box put together by me with a custom spell candle hand-tailored to your word of the year with a crystal and our Magic Moments journal.
Yay! We're going to be picking it out together, and I'm so excited. We're going to have one winner. This is open internationally, and if you're like, well, what are the odds that I'm going to win? Let's just say everyone who enters gets a little treat magic.
Yes, straight to your email inbox. And if you have entered one of our giveaways before, you can enter again. You can just go find your screenshot, or if you wanted to, you could leave us a review on another platform. We wouldn't be mad about that. But if you've entered in the past, don't feel like you can't send it to us again.
Yes. No purchase necessary. We'll handle all the shipping costs because we just love you. And we want to say thank you so much for taking this fun little journey with us and looking forward to many, many more years of Demystify Magic.
So click that link in the show notes and send us your screenshot.
And enjoy this episode. Bye.
Howdy doody, friends.
Duty howdy, friends.
Ooh, switching it up today.
You know, flip it, reverse it, you know.
Bop it, twist it, pull it, jump it. Yep.
That's it.
Today, we are doing it, you guys. We are back with another Q&A because it seems you guys have got a lot of Qs.
And we have a lot of A's.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. We are riddled with A's in this place.
All up in this bitch.
When we do a Q&A, we post in two places. We post it on our Instagram story, but we also post it to our Patreon. And we try to prioritize Patreon questions. So if you have some burning, red hot questions that you need us to answer, you might want to slide into our Patreon at demystifymagic.com.
Or, you know, if you just want access to our bonus podcast, A Court of Molly and Madison, where we yap and gab about anything and everything. That's on Patreon too.
You might want to have access to all the group chats that we have going.
Or maybe our new Clubhouse, which we created, which is a Notion doc where we put a monthly card pull and this week's beef, aka the random internet drama that I'm obsessing over. And we also put in different magical resources like our planetary planner, which we talked about on last week's episode.
Long story short, it's a fun place filled with many adventures, and we'd love to see you there.
Demystifymagic.com.
What was your magic moment this week, Molly?
My magic moment was that I got to be a student of my bestie.
Aww.
So my friend, not Madison.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine if I was talking about someone else?
So I went to this yoga class.
No, I got to go to Anthony and Madison's tarot class, the major arcana, and it was great. It was funny because like halfway through, I forgot I was watching like someone that I know and love and talk to every day, and was like fully immersed in the class. And I've been pulling my major arcana card every day.
Yay! That is music to my ears. We had so much fun with that. And truly, a bonus magic moment is that you saved the day in that class.
I was trying to get your attention for like 40 minutes.
Molly fully went into my presentation and fixed something for me that I have no idea how it got fucked up. And now I'm going to have you do it for every class that we do.
I got you. Yeah, I literally was texting you. I was DMing you on Zoom. I was like, send me the link. I'll fix it. Send me the link. I'll fix it. Just send me the link.
Just send me the link. Just send me the link. Just send me the link. I was just too in the zone. I was doing my
You
best.
really were. But it was magical and it was great. I've never seen you in like full teacher mode like that. And it was so fun. You were so confident and you were so radiant and I was so engaged. And I don't think a 2-hour workshop has ever engaged me so strongly.
It was so much fun. I really loved it. And it was like very grounding that you were there too. I like knew that because it's first time doing a hybrid event. We did both in person and virtual. By the way, the replay is available online and there are 4 more classes if you want to join. But knowing that you were there in the chat gave me the space, I think, to like be able to be fully present for both spaces because I knew that you would also be a resource, which was very helpful. So thank you for being there. It meant a lot to me.
Hey, anytime. It reminds me of, remember back in early days of our friendship when I had you in the chat for my Seed to Bloom manifestation program?
I do. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
No, me too. We like knew each other very little and I was like, hey, if I give you access to this thing, will you just be in the chat and just, if shit hits the fan, like just manage it? So
yeah, like
will you just
let people in the waiting room if they need to and like answer any questions? I was like, hell yeah, brother. Yeah, let's do it.
I forgot about that.
Oh my God. Aww.
Wow, full circle.
Full
Cute.
circle.
What was your magic moment?
My magic moment is very mundane in nature. This was a tragic moment that became a magic moment.
We love those.
I've talked about it a little bit on here. I have an Aura ring that I use for I use the app Natural Cycles for fertility tracking. And that's important context. So this past weekend, Drew took me on a date to this really gorgeous old theater, the Tampa Theater, if you're in Florida. It's this really cool old movie theater where they screen some new movies, but like mostly old movies, I think. And they did a screening of The Princess Bride. And Drew and I went. And at the end of the movie, Drew and I got up the second it was finished to like run to the bathroom because there's only one little bathroom. And so we were like, okay, we're going to beat the bathroom crowd, whatever. So I go to the bathroom. I'm racing. I wash my hands, whatever. I leave the bathroom. I take maybe 6 steps out of the bathroom and I look at my hands and my Aura ring is gone. And I'm immediately filled with panic and dread. Because I don't want to buy another Aura ring. This one works just fine. I'm like, it must have gone down the sink. Or maybe I took it off to wash my hands. So I go back into the bathroom. It's not in the sink. All these people are like looking at me with like
they're waiting for the bathroom.
They're waiting for the bathroom, and I literally like barreled through because by the time I left, I was the first one in the bathroom. By the time I left the bathroom, line out the door, at least 30, 40 people.
No.
In line for this restroom. So I go back in and I have to put, sorry, I left something in the bathroom. Sorry, excuse me, left something in the bathroom. Sorry. So I go in, no sign of it.
No.
Stomach sinks. I walk back out to Drew. I go, it's gone. Like it's gone. He goes, what do you want to do? Do you want to go back in there? And I'm like, no, I looked, like it's gone. And he was like, okay, so like, do you want to go? Like, what do you want to do in this moment? And I was like, I need a moment. And I put my little feet on the floor that were already on the floor, but I brought attention to them. And I took one deep breath and I grounded myself. And it came to me. I threw that bitch away. And I'm like, okay, I know where it is. It's in the trash can. I just have to gather the courage to be someone who digs in the trash in public. I go back into the bathroom. And this is both magic and tragic, is that the people who were in line right next to the trash can, it was a group of teen girls. This can go one of two ways, Teen girls famously, there's some energy there.
Were they girls?
There was I think it was a group of 4. 2 were girls. 1 was neutral. 1, when I said, well, at least they're all clean paper towels, to myself, goes, I wouldn't call it clean. I look up and I said, thanks for that. But one teen girl was looking in the trash can with me.
Oh.
And goes, I think I saw it. And she was able to point and found my Oura ring in the trash can as I rifled through all these half clean, half dirty paper towels. They were all used to dry, clean hands.
Sure.
You know, they were wet, but it was not, honestly, a little girl spilled her entire Coke into my purse earlier in the evening. So it was probably the cleanest thing I touched in that theater. So my magic moment is that with the power of girlhood, I found my Oura ring and I did not have to go to Best Buy and buy a fucking another one.
I love this for you.
Thank you. You know, it's been quite the week when that's the best I could do. Is that the magic is that I fixed my own problem I got myself in. That something terrible didn't happen. So this first question was asked a couple different ways, and one way was specifically to you, Molly, in regards to your yoga teacher training. But the general, more broad question is, how do you know it's time to transition from practicing to teaching?
Okay, here's how it happened for me. I started practicing yoga in 2014. The winter of 2015, I learned about traditional Chinese medicine through a yoga class and became enamored by it. And so every night, basically, I had no life. I would go home and I would do my own research on the meridians in the body and the different ways that energy flows through the body. And I'd try and find the science behind it. And I would practice different postures and see if I could feel the energy moving. And I had like notebooks upon notebooks of like notes that I had just taken from my own deep dives, research, and practice. And so within that like time span, I think it was like 3 months I was doing this, my teacher announced she was doing a yin yoga training. And I was like, oh, perfect. Now I have another resource that I can learn from. And so I went into this training in April of 2016 with no intentions of teaching. I was like, I don't want to teach. I just want to geek out. Like, I genuinely just want to geek out and understand everything about this practice. And I found it really easy for me. Like, she would ask questions and I would be like, oh, it's this, and this, you know? She'd be like, if someone can't forward fold, what other postures can get flexion into the back? And I'd be like, blah, 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 blah. You know, like, it was just so easy for me, I think, because I was so immersed in my own practice. And she was like, oh, you're going to be a great teacher. I was like, I'm not going to teach. Not me.
This is just for me and for fun.
Just for fun. And then what I found was I needed an outlet to geek out about all these things. I know now that I learn best through teaching and I integrate best through teaching. Mm-hmm. And so I was missing that piece. And so 3 months later, I just randomly fell into teaching at a rock climbing gym. And it just like all very serendipitously opened doors for me and felt very easy. And I was able to, you know, teach every week from there. So for me, it really was like I had this call that like I needed to know everything about this. And Reiki was kind of the same way. Reiki was a little bit of a longer, more circuitous route. But generally, how I go is I learn something, I become immersed in it. I integrate it so deep into my bones that I can't not talk about it. Like it just oozes out of me. And then that's kind of where I start teaching from. But I think the integration of the practice is really important. But I also think that, I mean, you can teach and decide you don't want to teach again after that. Like you don't just flip a switch from practice to teaching. I always say like, when I'm the teacher, I'm just the loudest student in the room. Like I'm constantly learning from other teachers, learning from my own practice, learning from my students. And so I think there's seasons of life where you're more in the student role and more in the teacher role. And just, I'm in a season right now where I'm more of the teacher role, but I'm still a student, you know?
I love that, where that idea that it's more of like a spectrum and a hat that you can put on rather than like an identity shift, because that is very much how it feels for me. And I think that's why a lot of us can struggle to get into the teacher mode or want to put on the teacher hat, because it feels like a permanent shift. And for me, it was like, well, I'm not done learning. I don't know everything. And so I don't feel comfortable or confident teaching. And that's why it took me so long to start teaching at the store.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a hot take, but any teacher who claims they know everything is not a good teacher.
For sure.
I think the best teachers are the ones that say, I'm not sure. Let me get back to you.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I think that that's like the most powerful thing that you can do, because I think that that also is where you release a lot of ego.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are teaching, and this kind of goes for any spiritual service, really, like when you're coming from a place of service rather than a place of performance. That's something that Anthony and I talk about a lot in readings, is like turning off that part of your brain that wants to know everything, that wants to be right, because that's like a very normal human desire, especially when there's money involved. You want to, and that's, I don't think that that's a bad thing. You want to do a good job. You want to provide a good service. You want to have the answers to all of these people's questions. But I have found that we gain the most social capital within the context of the store when we're honest and say that we don't know the answer to something. If somebody has a question, that creates a relationship where there's trust there.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, even if you maybe know, but you're not quite sure, like walking them through your thought process, you know, like being really honest and being like, I'm not really sure. I haven't really thought about it. Here's what I think right now. And like, I will often, especially in like my Reiki 3 coaching calls, because those students are real deep into the practice, they will ask questions sometimes where I'm like, I have literally never thought of that before. Here's where my brain is going. What does everyone else think?
Yeah.
And we will kind of like have a group discussion about it. And sometimes there isn't a right answer. Sometimes it's just the discussion is what we needed. I think there's to step into the teaching role, I don't think there's like a checklist that you have to check off. I don't think you're ever going to feel ready necessarily before you do it. It is one of those things that like, it's going to feel scary the first couple of times you do it. I will also say I eased into teaching. Like I thought about all of the skill sets that I've honed over my lifetime that had nothing to do with teaching that helped me be a teacher. And I really embodied those. So like I've been on stage my entire life. So I'm used to having a spotlight on me. You know, I've been in plays where my co-star forgot their lines and I had to like direct the scene back, you know, and thinking like, oh, that's really good for like on the fly. I used to be a consent educator. So I was in front of the class talking to 6th graders about, you know, internet safety and sexual harassment. And like that really helped me get comfortable answering questions. And so like pull those resources out of your life, even if it's like, you know, you're really good at like telling jokes at a dinner party or whatever. You're really good at organizing time or keeping track of time or whatever. Like all of those skills are helpful when you're a teacher. And so like I used to just take like an inventory of all my teaching skills. And even though I was new to teaching yoga, I was not a new teacher. And so that helped me kind of build the confidence and really embody that teacher version of myself. But I don't think you're ever going to feel like ready. I think it's just a matter of, you know, do you feel excited about the idea of sharing what you've learned? And if the answer is yes, then go for it. And maybe that's just with friends at first. Maybe that, you know, is a community class, a donation-based class, right? Like I used to do those all the time when I was just getting started and building confidence. Or maybe you just go all in and you're like, I'll start a metaphysical store and then I'll start teaching a tarot class and fuck it, we ball.
Yeah, sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. This also feels important to say. Don't let the fact that you're scared make you think that that means something negative. Being scared is actually a really good thing. That means that you care. Yeah. And I talk a lot on this podcast about how I am not a performance person. I was not a theater kid. I am not used to the spotlight being on me. It is not something where I feel super comfortable, and still yet every time I feel that fear in my stomach, that knot relaxes the moment somebody engages.
Mm-hmm.
The moment someone asks a question. And I remember, because truly before that tarot class, I was like, well, what happens when I turn on the Zoom and I forget everything I've ever known about tarot? You know? And the first time I was like able to open my mouth and say something that I knew was true to my experience, that fear starts to lessen. And that knot will slowly unclench throughout the experience. And you'll feel it every time if you're anything like me. But it's the knowledge that you know when it goes away, that's what makes it easier.
Yeah, totally. And I think like you could be a really seasoned teacher and still have that knot. Anytime I teach something new, I have that little like, oh, what if I completely forget what I was planning to say?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of having notes with you. I've always been a yoga teacher that's brought notes. You know what? The way that I describe it is if I have a complicated order with allergies and substitutions at a restaurant, I feel way more comfortable if the waiter is taking notes than if they just say, got it, and walk off, you know? And so like, I think sometimes, especially with yoga teacher training, like there's this like weird attitude that like if you bring notes, you're not a real yoga teacher. But like here's my hot take. If you don't bring notes, then you're probably teaching the same sequence every week, which is fine, But like some of us want to spice it up. And so why not bring notes so that you can remember the cool flow that you were planning to do, or the quote that you wanted to drop, or the little golden nugget of knowledge that you wanted to impart during Shavasana. Like bring the fucking notes. Nobody cares.
Yeah. I've never, ever gone to a yoga class and looked at what my teacher had brought with them.
No.
It's never been something that I've even considered or thought about.
Yeah, same.
Truthfully, when I'm in any sort of class environment, especially as someone who does feel a lot of fear around public speaking and things like that, I am so in awe of anyone who puts themselves out there and is willing to be a teacher, and has like that, to me says so much about them that I am usually coming into it with a feeling of admiration no matter what. So you're starting on a good foot with everybody who walks in that door, because they are proud of you that you decided to get up and do this thing.
Also, pro tip from someone who is very comfortable public speaking, if you do ever have a moment where you're like, oh my God, I forgot what I was going to say, or I don't know how to respond to this, or blah, 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 have a glass of water near you and say, and then you take a sip of water. And while you're taking a sip of water, you think what you're going to say. Gives you just a moment to come back to the present.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Next, what are your witchy tips for writing?
Ooh, I feel like we talked about this in an episode somewhere in the 111 episodes. Oh my God, this is our 111th episode. 111. Yay! Witchy tips for writing. I love a writing spell candle. I love a candle that's specifically for creativity or focus or whatever the intention is. I think I talked about this when I was doing like my book proposal for Mundane Magic, but I would burn the Quantum Jump spell candle from Spellcrafter, and I would envision being on Oprah's couch talking about my book whenever I got stuck writing it. No pressure, but that inspired me. I also think, you know, if you're writing like something big, like a book, I think this person was writing like a fantasy novel or something, but I found it really helpful to kind of like jump around. So when I wrote my book, I wrote my outline. I knew what every chapter was going to include, but I didn't write it linearly. I didn't start with like chapter 1 and then chapter 2 and then chapter 3. I kind of bounced to what excited me in the moment, what I was excited to talk about, which was really fun to see like which specific chores on the list I left for last. That was interesting. But I think like letting your inspiration guide you rather than trying to guide your inspiration all the time can be really helpful. And then I also think having a writing practice that has nothing to do with like the thing that you're trying to write. So whether it's, you know, I notoriously will write one-act plays that are just ridiculous, and most of them don't see the light of day, and that's fine. And it just helps fuel my creative muscle in a way that then I can use when I'm writing something like, you know, for Instagram or my email or my courses or my book or whatever.
Yeah, I think something that Anthony taught me he's doing a psychic development course that is something that he talks about with meditation that I want to take and apply to everything is basically like spiritual Pavloving, which is where before meditation, you have something that aligns with each of the five senses. And you do those things, like you set that mood, that energy. You do the lights the same way. You light the same candle. You light the same incense. You wear the same headphones. You listen to the same meditation music, whatever it is. You build an environment that slowly, as you develop that like meditative routine, when you smell that incense or hear that sound, it's easier for you to slip into that place. I feel like with anything that is regimented that you want to do regularly that requires a level of dedication, that's a really, really helpful practice. And so I would take it a step further of like make a writing playlist, pick a writing smell, make a meal, like find like one of your favorite foods and like have that with you as like a little snack every time you're writing.
Cup of tea.
Have the same cup of tea. Set the mood just right in your writing space and recreate that every time you sit down to write. And that can almost trick your brain into like, okay, I know how to be here. I know that this is where I'm in my creative zone. This is where I enter this kind of flow space.
Yeah, and I love that as a magical practice too, because it really like almost like sets a bubble around the space and time.
Totally.
Where it's like, okay, I'm committing to this, and whether I write one word or 100,000 words, you know, I am a writer kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think anything where you do like a small amount of preparation, at least for me, I trick my brain into the like, oh, well, I don't want to waste this candle I just lit.
Yeah.
You know, I have a candle that I light when I'm writing that I tell myself, okay, you know this candle will tunnel if you put it out before it gets to a full pool, before the melted wax reaches the glass. So you need to write until that full pool happens. And that's like maybe 20, 30 minutes. And by then, I almost always want to keep going.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, getting started is the hardest part. I love that. Next, we had some questions around garden magic and outdoor altars. How can we make gardening more magic-y?
I'm back in my garden era, you guys.
She's in her garden era.
All my plants died. I wouldn't go into my backyard for a solid 3 months. A couple weeks ago, Drew and I went hard. We cleaned up all the leaves. We bought some planter boxes. I think gardening in itself is its own magic. So that's like the baseline. So just know that when you're gardening, you're doing something magical. The most magical thing I've done is stop wearing gloves. Touch the dirt.
Couldn't be me.
Touch the dirt.
No, thank you.
Touch it.
No, thanks.
I wear gloves to weed, but when I'm like planting my seedlings and stuff, that is the most grounding thing you can do. Molly's giving me such a look and I don't even care.
I hate bugs.
This is soil that I bought in a store that is bug free. I hadn't considered that bugs could be in the soil, so thanks for that. Thanks, I hate it. But there is a certain kind of magic to like growing and caring for something. So even if it's not like an outdoor space, I also have some seedlings that I'm growing inside. And I just have them next to each other. All these little pots like by my sunniest window. And it is a little ritual of in the morning, I go and I put each pot under the sink and I water it. And I give it my intentions. And I actually have like with paint pens, we did this during the Beltane ritual at Spellcrafter. We did some planting and we wrote and drew on the terracotta pots. And so I've written my intentions for like this season on these little terracotta pots that hold these seedlings. As I give love and care, as I nurture them, as I water them, as I care for them, I also care for those intentions. And you can do the same thing without writing it. You can just give your intentions to those plants. And I think it's important to note though that like the growth, if something doesn't grow or doesn't sprout, that is not an indication, because what matters is the action. If something doesn't sprout, that doesn't mean you've done something wrong and everything's going to go terribly. I would take that as an indication of like, oh, maybe this needs a little bit more tender love and care. Maybe there's something larger, more time. There's something that I can do here to give more energy to this intention. But as that plant sprouts and grows, you see that intention growing.
Yeah, it's kind of like how if we plant something and it doesn't grow, we don't go, "Oh, I'm the worst gardener ever." We go, I wonder if it's something in the soil, or maybe I didn't water it enough, or maybe it was just a bum seed and I have to try again.
Yes, for
You
sure.
know?
That was like that was my fear when I did the Beltane ritual. I was like, well, if nobody thinks sprouts, they're going to be mad at me and think that they did a terrible job. So I had a big little preview of like, listen, I followed the instructions on the back of the seed packet. I soaked them. I've done what I think needs to happen, but sometimes it's, take as many as you need because we want to make sure we get a good seed in there. There's lots of external factors. Don't think that if this doesn't sprout, that your magic is tainted and everything's gone wrong.
Yeah.
So garden magic is definitely like a practice in discernment for sure of like what's magic and what's mundane. But I love that somebody asked about outdoor altars too, because that's something that I've slowly been like working on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like turning my little backyard moment into an altar in itself.
Cute.
And it's been really lovely. But it's like not altar things that I would put inside my house. Like for me, my new bird feeder is a part of an altar space because it's like bringing in life and more nourishment, like giving back to the earth,
air element,
feeding its creatures, feeding its squirrels and its blue jays, But like, I think the biggest piece of advice that I have for outdoor altars and honestly for garden magic is it's also a really great way to get comfortable with life and death. Your plants might die. And also a lesson in like non-attachment because feeding the squirrels has had some unexpected consequences, as in they've eaten some of my seedlings.
Oh, sad.
They need it more than me. They're hungry. That's what I tell myself.
Yeah, I get it. I love to use crystal magic in my garden. So yes, planting intentions, but also you can use crystals to help your plants grow and your intentions grow. So for instance, moss agate is my favorite across the board for like seedlings, any kind of outdoor plant, vegetables. Moss agate's just great. It's great for just like a bountiful harvest. But if you have like a houseplant that's kind of sad, turning a little yellow, really on the struggle wagon, rose quartz is the one that I go with. If you're planting an intention with a plant and you want it to really, really grow and amplify, citrine is great. I also see plants as energy purifiers, and they'll also tell you how the energy in your space is. So for instance, I had this one plant that was like, it was doing great. It was doing fine. It was doing fantastic. It was growing. And then one day it just stopped and it started looking sad. And I didn't change anything. Stayed in the same spot, got the same sunlight, got the same, water, fertilizer, all of that. And when that happens, I take it as a sign that like, okay, they need to cleanse my space or the plant needs to move to a new space. Like the space feels stagnant or the plant feels stagnant. And so I moved it to a new space, did a cleanse, and it's got a new leaf that is opening today. I know. You can also use your garden as a warding practice for your house. So if you plant rosemary or lavender or basil, what are other good protective herbs?
Basil's a good one. Rosemary's my favorite.
Yeah, rosemary, peppers, especially hot peppers. Like I plant jalapenos. All of those are good for protection. Or if you have like kind of a stressed out space, maybe you plant chamomile, calendula, jasmine. I don't know what grows in different places, but those are the ones I would go for. Or if you are looking to manifest abundance and call abundance into your house, planting mint, planting basil, planting anything that has like a lot of little seeds. So strawberries are great if they grow in your area. You can use that as a part of your practice. I also like to take the clippings, the stems, or the flowers, whatever I'm planting, and use them in simmer pots. I'll also press flower petals and I'll use them in baths or spell jars or on my altar. So there's lots of different ways that you can use that. In terms of outdoor altars, I immediately, when I read this, I thought of when I went to visit the redwoods, which if you've never been to the redwoods, it's I think, the most magical, grounded place I've ever been to in my entire life. It was surreal, the experience of it. Have you been?
I want to go so bad.
Oh my God.
I want to go so bad.
I can't even explain to you. There were like certain moments where I was standing between trees and I felt legitimately like I was being abducted by aliens. Like I was floating off of the earth into the ethos. It was wild. It was magic. And I just felt called to, this was the week that I went to sponsor games. And so I'd been working with the fairies a lot. And so I started to see like little signs of the fairies in the forest. And I felt really called to leave them an offering. But I didn't want to like leave trash or food or whatever and like disrupt the ecosystem. And so what I did was, as we were on our walk, I picked up like fallen rocks or twigs or flowers, things that had already fallen onto the forest floor. And I just kind of gathered them along my walk. And then I found a spot that felt right. And I just arranged them in a way that was like a little offering, like a little grid. Or, you know, there was this one tree that I swear has like a fairy house in it. Like it was just like a little hole in the tree. And I just put a little flower right there for the fairies. And I said, thank you so much. And I gave the tree a hug and I went off. That's one of my favorite things to do on walks, is like collecting things that have already fallen specifically, or not, like picking things and arranging them for the spirits of the forest. It's my fave.
I love that. Something I loved when I used to live in St. Louis is the neighborhood adjacent to the one that I lived in. I would go take walks in there, and it was just like a thing that they had little fairy gardens nestled in the bottom of trees and things. And
Cute.
I think that's a really beautiful way to have an outdoor altar. But really, I guess like it depends on what your definition of an altar is, or like what service or what purpose a altar serves for you. Because if it is a space specifically for you to do spell work, you have different needs. Then for me, an altar is a place of spiritual intention. And so for me, that's like putting a few crystals underneath my outdoor sofa, you know, like planting protective herbs, which, by the way, if you are in the South, or especially if you're in Florida, anything that you grow here, in my opinion, can be used for protection, because that shit has to be tough. Anything that will grow in your garden is instantly protective, because damn, anything that can grow in my environment where sometimes I forget it exists, that's a protective plant, because she's putting in work.
Yeah.
But I think the key to any altar, but especially an outdoor altar, is deciding what intention you have for that space. Because if it is a space for offerings, you're going to need something different than if it's a space for spell work, than if it's a space just for joy, which is what it is for me. And so for me, I've been building my outdoor altar by creating a space that I would want to meditate in, you know, by creating an environment that is filled with life, that the elements are welcome. You know, I didn't even realize when you said the air element, totally. I feel like that's both air and earth. And then fire, I have a little like bonfire situation.
You need a bumblebee bath.
That is what I need. I need a bumblebee bath. That's our altar. That's our altar tip. Go get a bumblebee bath.
Bumblebee bath. Bzz, bzz, bzz.
All right. What is it really like running your own business with ADHD?
Oh, God. What is it like?
It's hard.
I will tell you, I think I've said this on the pod before, but I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in like kindergarten. And so it's just always naturally been a part of my life. And so I've always just coped with it, like to the point where I really did not think about my ADHD much, if at all, until I started running a business.
Yeah.
And then it hit me full force where I went, oh, yeah.
When you're in the structure of like somebody else's business, there's usually something in place that you're accountable to.
Yeah. There's consequences.
There's consequences to your actions. And that really is often enough to like fuel me.
Yeah.
Like fear of disappointing someone else is pretty high on my list. Fear of disappointing myself gets pretty low when it's just me.
See, the thing that tripped me up is like the consequences when you're working for someone else are usually not life or death. But the consequences when you run your own business are.
Yeah.
because especially like my first year working for myself, my nervous system was so jacked up around the idea that like if I don't do X, Y, and Z and I don't do X, Y, Z perfectly and it doesn't go exactly how I planned, there goes my house.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we're not eating. Yeah.
Like that was enough to freak my nervous system out to the point where I was like trapped in the freeze response until I was like panicked.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I feel like much more regulated now, much more in working with my ADHD now rather than like working against it. I think part of that is just I've gotten used to it kind of more. And I've built structure for myself. I found it really difficult. I do this thing, and my community manager, Jade, is listening to this just laughing because she's constantly trying to remind me not to do this, and I always do it. But I do this thing where I either have a week where I don't have a lot going on, which you think would be good because then you can just get everything done. But with no structure in the week, I get nothing done because I'm just buffering. Or I have a week that is so overflowed, I'm like on the brink of burnout all week and I get so much done because in the nooks and crannies in between every meeting, appointment, or attunement, I'm like rushing to get my to-do list done. Neither of those options work for me. And so this year I have been very intentional about creating neither of those weeks for myself, creating a healthy in between where it's like, well, instead of cramming all of the meetings into this same week, what if I set myself a limit of like 5 a week?
Yeah.
And I have to spread them out. What if, you know, the only thing I do on Mondays is record the podcast and like prep for the week ahead? You know, what would that be like? And so I think figuring out what that structure looks like. I also think working around my energy levels has really helped. Like I have learned I'm someone that if I'm going to film, if I'm going to be on camera, it has to be before noon.
Yeah.
Gotta be before noon. There's very rare occasions where I film in the afternoon. It just doesn't work for my brain. I have way more energy. I'm way more focused in the morning. That's why we record the podcast earlier. Meetings in the afternoon are great for me. I love a meeting in an afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. I will get stuff done before then. Morning meetings? No, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. I don't want that.
I need a few hours to wake up to process my feelings from the day before. I need to get at least one other thing done, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like running a business with ADHD is like, it's difficult, but it does feel like a superpower. Because like it was right before the tarot class. I was like, you know, it would be a cool idea if we made a clubhouse of resources for the Patreon. And literally like, I didn't even tell Madison. I had this idea. And then 10 minutes after the tarot class, I was like, that was so good. I loved it so much. Look what I made.
That was exactly what happened.
Fully formed with like a resource in it and like already like created. I was like, what do you think? Should we make this?
And I had to be like, I love you so much. I'm very excited about this. There's still people in the store. I got to drive home still. May I drive home before I investigate this further?
But that's an ADHD superpower. You know, it's that moment where I can be like, oh my God, I'm so excited about this and just like bang it out in an afternoon and feel proud of it, that I think, you know, my business wouldn't exist without that. So I think it's worth the challenges, you know, to kind of like find ways to work with it. I also feel like at this time in my business, I feel extremely privileged in that I have started outsourcing things that my ADHD really cannot do, cannot manage. I cannot manage like tedious administrative work. I couldn't even manage like editing, felt so tedious to me that I started outsourcing that last year. And it's been the greatest thing I've ever done for my creativity.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think for me, it was always building my business to work to a place where I could outsource the things that take me away from my magic. And my magic is my ADHD. And so it's like the things that make me light up, the things that make me hyper focused, the things that make me excited. And that's kind of what I strive for. And it's worked out. So
yeah, I agree. I think for me, my mom and I were both diagnosed with ADHD like as adults. And so that's been like an interesting journey because I've been on the business journey and the ADHD journey kind of at the same time. I just kind of thought that I was like shitty at doing things for 23, 24 years, you know? And so to have like someone come in and say, no, that's actually your brain doesn't make dopamine the same way. That's actually, it was very validating. And I was able to flip a switch to be able to work with it a lot easier pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of have a similar answer, which is that things got a lot easier when Drew started working for the family business.
The token neurotypical.
Drew is my token neurotypical. He is. And having someone, especially within the context of like a family business, because with like my mom and I are never going to act like normal coworkers, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is my mother. Like that is just, those are the facts. And so we can be as professional as possible, but like there are going to be times where like we are mother and daughter. Having someone who is both intimately aware of our relationship, has a relationship with both of us separately. Like Drew is close with my mom in like a normal way, not in a weird way. Don't get weird. But also isn't just a coworker. Like he is also a part of the family. That has made it a lot easier where it's someone who is able to say, because like, not that I don't listen to the people that we work with, obviously, but there's that added pressure of like, oh, that's my partner who I also have to be accountable to when I go home.
Mm-hmm.
So when he says like, hey, can you get this done for me? Or here's what you need to do. Not only is it really helpful to have someone who like lays that out for me and handles those things, like my mom. Sorry, Mom, I'm going to put you on blast here. She struggles to remember to do our sales tax. We have to pay our sales tax monthly. And it's just like, it's like a basic, very easy, takes 5 minutes administrative task, but we are the same as you, where like those are just very hard. And so we always end up having to pay a late fee because it just gets push and push and push, whatever. Drew handles the sales tax. It's excellent. And sometimes handling the sales tax is just being like, hey, Christy, did you do the sales tax this month? And her being like, oh no, I totally forgot. I'm going to do it right now. Can you sit next to me while I do it?
Yeah.
That is so helpful. But also having the added level of accountability of like, I know he's as invested in this business as we are.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to answer to it after 5 p.m.
Yeah.
If I don't get it done.
I think having accountability is like, is the thing we both had to create when running our businesses. Like I was just thinking as you were saying that, I was like, that's what Lily does for us with the podcast. For
sure. And there was a long time where that's what we were for each other. Was accountability. Yeah. Like it was when we first started the podcast, both of our businesses looked very different. And we would record the podcast and then we would stay on Zoom for hours doing the things that we did not want to do silently while the other person and we would say like, oh, I just did this. I just finished this. And then the other person would go, good job. Excellent. And then we would continue to sit in silence and like do the things that we needed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I feel like we still have that. It just looks different. Like you literally beginning of the year were like, I have this goal. And I was like, great, let's make a timeline. Let's make a plan. I will be holding your feet to the fire.
Yes, I will be checking in and asking you how you're doing with this thing. My friend Eileen, who I've talked to you guys about, who leads Witches with Religious Trauma, she will text me periodically about journaling. We hold each other accountable in that. And I think just like having people who know what your goals are and know, because I think also the thing with starting your own business is a lot of people are very quiet about it. There's like a level of keeping your cards close to your chest. And I think a lot of that is fear-based because you don't want to tell people what you want to do because what if you don't get it? And so finding people that you trust with your goals and asking them for help to keep you, not that anybody asks for advice, but I'm giving it. Finding people to hold you accountable and trusting them with what your dreams and goals and trusting them with your to-do list, saying, I really need to get this thing done. Can you check back with me in 15 minutes that I've done it? That is probably one of the most helpful things that either of us have ever done for ADHD.
Yeah, we do that all the time. Like I literally will say, I have to do this thing. Please be mad at me if I don't do it in the next 2 hours.
Don't text me back until I've shown you that I've done this thing. That's a big one for us.
I have a friend who's also an entrepreneur with a squiggly brain, and she will text her partner and say, if I don't get XYZ done in the next hour, please send me a Venmo request for $25.
Wow. I don't have enough trust in myself for that. I would be paying a lot of money.
Yeah. I honestly, sometimes my ADHD is so stubborn. It's like, fuck it. Take the 25.
Yeah.
But Madison being mad at me, can't
have it. Can't have it. There's going to be a TikTok I'm going to want to send you later. Like I've got to get back to a place where we can talk.
I know. And that's the thing is like, especially when it's a friend like you, where I do send like every thought that goes through my head and every TikTok that I see that is interesting. I know that if I'm scrolling to avoid doing the thing, I can't send you the TikTok. So I'm like, okay, I can't scroll. So it does, might as well do the thing.
Yeah, it does create some structure.
Yeah, it does. I need that. The other thing that's helped me too is I know that no one will be shocked by this because I did notoriously get diagnosed with OCD a couple of years ago, but I used to obsess over my business 24/7. And I think it's especially hard when you turn your hobby into a business. Like I did not go into all of this thinking like, I'm going to make a business. I just loved it and pursued the knowledge of it for the love of it. And then it just became what it is. And so I remember maybe a year or two ago, just looking at my life being like, what do I do outside of like when I'm not working? What do I do? Like everything is work. It was like, oh, I'll go to Florida, visit Madison. That's work. Like, oh, I'll go to a yoga class. That's work. Like, oh, I'll get a Reiki session. That's work. I'll go crystal shopping. That's work. Like, and so finding hobbies that had nothing to do with my business really, really helped my ADHD because it compartmentalized when I'm working and when I'm not, which then created more of that structure.
Yeah.
So like reading smut, I'm going to come back to it. Reading smut helped my business because it created structure.
So long story short, find your smut hobby.
Find your smut hobby. Find your silly, goofy friend that will hold you accountable and be nice to your brain.
Love it.
Did we do it?
I think we did it.
All right, friends. Just a reminder, if you want to support the pod, you can go to demystifymagic.com. We've got merch there. We've got the Patreon there. We've got some unhinged group chats in that Patreon. Please join us.
You don't want to miss it.
Okay, bye. Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. If you want to learn more about us, you can find all our links in the show notes.
We'd love to know what you think of today's episode, so drop us a review or give us a shout out on social media. And don't forget to let us know your magical moment of the week. Okay, love you. Bye.